Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a beer, it's time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today I want to continue a series that I've been putting out on Endgame uniques, and I want to talk about Glorious Vanity, a particularly powerful unique jewel that has some of the most cryptic text of all of Path of Exile. So all that Glorious Vanity does, and this is no different if you're holding Alt with advanced mod descriptions on, all it does is it says, bathed in the blood of some number sacrificed in the name of either Ahuana, Doriani, or Javakwa, and then passives in radius are conquered by the Vaal. Ultimately, this is really cryptic text and doesn't tell you what the item does. So that's what this video is about, to give you a sense as to what this item actually does and why you should consider using it on almost every endgame character. Now, this is a timeless jewel, and that's where the historic word comes in. All that historic means is that you are limited to one historic jewel. So if you take Glorious Vanity on your build, that prevents you from using some of the other powerful timeless jewels that exist, things like Militant Faith and a couple of others. However, for most builds, Glorious Vanity is the best of them, but there's certainly uses for the other ones as well, and on some builds you will want to use the others. So what Glorious Vanity does, it does three independent things. The first thing it does is it scrambles the effect of every small node in its radius. So if I remove Glorious Vanity for a sec, you'll see that this here is the Combat Stamina node. This is a pretty weak life and armor node, life and armor and regeneration cluster. And everything within this cluster, this Combat Stamina cluster, has the same thematic effect. I am going to endure punishment through the use of my armor, my life, and my regeneration. Once we socket in the Glorious Vanity jewel, you'll notice that that entire concept changes. Here we have Might of the Vaal. This is freeze, skill effect duration, and increased area damage. Totally different effect. Then we have area effect, physical damage, and area damage. So this has actually maintained an area theme. However, if I put a different copy of Glorious Vanity in, that won't be the case. Here we have Revitalizing Wind, which is physical damage and life leech. We have lightning damage, we have projectile speed, and we have projectile damage. So as you can see, it totally randomizes the contents of the small sockets that are of the small clusters. Sorry, the small the small passive tree nodes that are nearby, and also the notable passive tree nodes, which are the larger ones. And that'd be the same if I use the third Glorious Vanity, it'll do something else again. Here we have Spell Leech to ZS, Chance to Freeze, ES, and Cast Speed. So that actually has more synergy than most of them do, because normally it's random. You might well have had instead Energy Shield here, Life here. No synergy whatsoever for most builds. So that is broadly speaking a drawback. Even though some of these small nodes are individually strong, I'm just having a look to see if I can find 5% increased effectiveness of curses, because that is one of the very strong ones. It may or may not be present on this particular jewel, but no, it's not. It doesn't seem to be on this jewel. Oh yeah, there we go, 4% increased effect of your curses. So there's a number of these small nodes that are really, really, really good, but the clusters lose synergy with each other, which broadly speaking means that the clusters within the range of this timeless jewel you probably don't want to take. And you want to socket this cluster jewel in places where you're not going to be absolutely gutted by losing access to this area of the passive tree. So that's what it does to small nodes, that's what it does to notables. But what it does to keystone notables is tremendous. And this is the reason that you use this jewel. This is the reason that this jewel is a chase endgame unique item. Very valuable in the first week of a league, although it does tend to fall off pretty quickly after that because it's not that hard to source. So, if the name that is listed on the jewel is Javakwa, then the effect of the jewel is that every keystone in the area is changed to Divine Flesh. What Divine Flesh does, this is something that you want to consider on life-based builds that totally don't care about Energy Shield, and ideally on builds that can get a massive amount of chaos resistance. What this does defensively that's really powerful is 50% of elemental damage is taken as chaos damage. This is just unbelievably powerful. What this will allow you to do is to essentially, if your chaos resistance, if you can get that to 90%, which is miles above the normal cap, and your elemental resistances are at 76%, which is the normal cap, then suddenly you're only going to be taking 83% of... you're going to have essentially 83% resistance to elemental damage. So if you take 1,000 cold damage, then your 76% cold resist would instead cause you to take 240 damage. But with Divine Flesh, you'll instead take 120 cold damage, and then you'll take a simple 50 chaos damage. That's after your 90% chaos resistance is applied. Now, getting to 90% chaos resistance is no joke. You will have to both raise your maximum chaos resistance from the default 75 up to 90, and Divine Flesh helps you do that. It gives you 5 to maximum chaos resist, and you'll also need to find ways to just source that chaos resistance on gear. Cluster Jewels are outstanding for doing this. Cluster Jewels will do both of these things for you. Ultimately, the Javakwa themed Glorious Vanity Jewels are incredibly strong if you are playing a life-based character and if you are capable of sourcing all of that chaos resistance somewhere on your passive tree or on equipment. Ultimately, this is a powerful defensive layer for builds. It's something you do need to plan around a lot, and it is something that you can't use at early endgame. So it's a late game plan, but it is a very strong one. And there's something absolutely incredible to be said about having 7,000 life, 4 endurance charges or more, and a Javakwa Glorious Vanity Jewel with 90% chaos resistance. You won't quite feel immortal, but you will be very hard to kill. So that's the Javakwa option. Next up is the Ahuana one, which is broadly considered the weakest of the three, although it is far from weak. So the Ahuana Jewels change this into Immortal Ambition. Immortal Ambition is essentially the way in which your character can gain an enormous benefit from Life Leech that will actually help you against massive one-shot hits. And what the Immortal Ambition lets you do is essentially treat any energy shield that your character can gain as an additional buffer, a preemptive buffer against damage that you suffer. So with Immortal Ambition, your energy shield starts at 0, and you cannot recharge or regenerate energy shield. So this means that your energy shield is always 0 unless you can gain energy shield through alternate methods. And the way that you'd be doing it with this is Leech. Then, lose 5% of energy shield per second. So they're really doubling down on this thing of you have no starting energy shield at all. But Life Leech effects are not removed at full life is an incredibly powerful mod. And Life Leech effects recover energy shield instead when your character is at full life. It's really hard to understate how powerful this is. If your character is capable of, for instance, having 7,000 life on a Slayer build, not on a Slayer, on a build that's not a Slayer, because this gives you a lot of the benefits of the Slayer. So let's say that you've got a Berserker that's got 7,000 health, and you can then start laying into an enemy. Then you can build up an extra buffer of several hundred energy shield that will then protect you by being the first hit, the first damage that you suffer will be eaten by that energy shield. Then in addition, you will also continue leeching life and or energy shield if you do get hit through it. So let's say that you've got 7,000 7,000 life and 1,000 energy shield on your character, and you have, through the use of Life Leech, you have raised that up to full life and full energy shield while fighting a boss. Then, that boss hits you for 5,000 health. You will now drop from 7,000 health and 1,000 ES, you'll drop to 3,000 health, but you'll already be leeching life. And so you'll very quickly recover a large amount of that life pool, of that life that you lost from that boss hit. And once you get back to 7,000, you will then be able to continue gaining energy shield further. This is extremely powerful and is something that should be seriously considered on any build that can benefit from Leech. It's not necessarily something you absolutely have to take, but it is strong. Additionally, you can get this benefit from the unique item Soul Tether, although that does take up your belt slot. Lastly, we have Glorious Vanity that is sacrificed in the name of Doriani. Doriani is probably the strongest of the three and grants you Corrupted Soul. This has a drawback and a benefit. However, the drawback can actually be a benefit in the right build. So, Corrupted Soul is designed for builds that have a very large life pool and have a middling amount of energy shield. So if you're playing a build, even like mine for that matter, that sits on 4,000 odd life, which is actually pretty low, actually very low, and 1,400 energy shield, then that's the sort of thing that that this is ideal for. Actually works even better on a build that's got, say, 6,000 life and 500 energy shield. Now, what this will do is it will grant you Corrupted Soul. 50% of non-chaos damage taken bypasses energy shield. The first thing about this is that it means that this is absolutely unplayable in conjunction with Chaos Inoculation. So Chaos Inoculation, just a quick refresher for anyone that's not familiar with it, it's one of the single most build-defining keystones. It sets your life to 1 and makes you immune to chaos damage. But Corrupted Soul means that fire damage, for instance, is non-chaos damage, and if you take 2 points of fire damage and you're a Chaos Inoculation character, then 1 point of that is going to bypass your energy shield and your character is going to fall over dead. So don't take this in conjunction with Chaos Inoculation. Also, don't take it on builds that have a large amount of energy shield and a small amount of life. Because again, you'll run out of life before you run out of VS. But then you have this really powerful effect, gain 20% of maximum life as extra maximum energy shield. This is just incredible. It's one of the biggest sources of flat energy shield that you can get anywhere in the game, and it will just be a tremendous, tremendous defensive buff for any character. The other thing that's really strong, though, with Corrupted Soul is that because you've got this 50% of non-chaos damage bypassing energy shield, as well as 100% of chaos damage, because that's just an intrinsic effect of energy shield, that it's ineffective against chaos damage. Because you're taking this damage, you're not going to be at full life, but you might have a large energy shield buffer keeping you alive. So what this can mean is, let's say that you've got 6,000 life and 2,000 energy shield after equipping Corrupted Soul. If you take 1,000 damage from a boss's melee attack, you're now at 5,500 and 1,500. So 5,500 life, 1,500 energy shield. Because you are no longer at full life, you can now leech life. You can now gain life through all sorts of other means, but you still have 1,500 energy shield protecting you. And one particularly powerful use of this is the Watcher's Eye, and you'll see here that a good example of that is the Watcher's Eye that my character is using. Gain 25 life for each enemy hit while you are affected by Vitality. So if I was using a Doriani Glorious Vanity, then as soon as I took a little bit of damage, even while I still had energy shield left, I would immediately start benefiting from that 25 life gained per enemy hit, which would be a tremendous, tremendous defensive buff for me, because it would help me recover life immediately. Anyway, that's why Glorious Vanity is so good. The other thing that's noticeable with this jewel is the number uniquely determines the randomness of all of the small nodes. And that's the same whichever of the 3 variants it is. So if I had a 2382 Doriani and a 2382 Ahuana, they would have the same effect on the small nodes in its radius, but then the name uniquely determines what effect it has on the keystones. So that's something that can help you work out exactly what the jewels will do. However, there is no master list, unfortunately, and there is a lot of scamming and dishonest trading involved with these, because fundamentally these jewels don't tell you, like the game doesn't tell you what these jewels do. You have to figure that out yourself, unfortunately, and as a result, the fine details of what they do to the small nodes are essentially impossible to work out without a lot of external knowledge. The last point to make about these is that using a Divine Orb scrambles both mods. So if I was to use a Divine Orb on this Glorious Vanity here, the number would be randomly replaced by any even number within the range 100 to 8,000, and the name would be randomly replaced with Ahuana, Doriani, or Javaqua. It can be any of the 3. And so that means that using Divine Orbs on these, whilst possible, can be quite expensive. Anyway, that's all I got on this very powerful endgame jewel. I highly recommend using it on pretty much every build that has a much higher life total than it has an energy shield total, unless you have a very good reason not to. But if you've got any comments or questions, fire away below. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it there, and I hope you have a good one.